Another championship event is what we will be doing in the professional events of Gran Turismo 4. And, well, the reason why I switched over to the GT Skyline for a split second is, well, because I wanted to try and see if I could enter this thing into the Supercar Festival, and, well, because it specifically says unmodified cars only, unfortunately the GT Skyline was not one of those unmodified cars, which kind of sucks, and right now I kind of feel a little discouraged over that, even though it would have been a perfect choice. Anyway, I'm going to use the Dome Zero for our next championship, because I don't think we're going to have too much trouble pulling off the next championship we're doing. So basically, yeah, that's why the menu music changed again, if you're asking, because I went to check on the fucking event regulations to see if it would let me get away with having the GT Skyline in the Supercar series. And as you might have guessed, well, as I said before, it did not work out for me. So basically, it's one plan I had that was immediately thwarted, as much as I would have wanted to do it, because I think it would have worked. You know what? I think the only thing I really need here is just a little bit more engine power, and then I think we should be fine, because I don't think we're going to have too much trouble here. I'd say getting the power up to about 183 will be enough, and then if we have to face off against the Renault Clio in this, I'll get the stage 1 tuning, just in case. I think the only other thing I need, realistically, for this, since we're not going to be up against typically powerful competition, I'm just going to put on the sports suspension, because why not? Okay, let's go. I think that should be everything we need. So, let's now get going with the professional events. I will also have to make sure I use the GT Skyline at some point, because I've now switched over to it once. So here we are then. World Compact Car Race, 400mm or less, we can enter this thing. 7.5 grand depending on how many races we win, and the overall winnings we get for the championship is 30 grand, as we're heading to Seattle, Tsukuba, Grand Valley, East, Hong Kong, and Twin Ring Motegi, East. So, I think we should be okay with this. Let's get going. Being small has its advantages. This is a high-level battle between a legion of hot hatchers. I am convinced in saying we are gonna have little to no problems here, as in this field we have got a Volkswagen Lupo along with a Honda Jazz, a Mercedes A160 Avant-Garde, a Toyota Yaris, and a BMW 120i. So, I'm convinced in saying this is going to be a cakewalk, I think. I did of course put on a little bit of engine tuning just in case, but I'm convinced in saying we should be fine with this. As in, I'm strongly convinced in saying this will probably be a cakewalk, so I don't think we'll have too many problems here. Or if we do, then, well, I'll just have to try this again, but I did little bits of engine tuning just to make it competitive, so yeah, I think we should be fine here, from what I can tell. I don't think we've got too much of a problem here. Yeah, 8 points. I think this is going to be a cakewalk, from what I can see. The only thing I really did was just improve the engine power by a little bit. And that was pretty much all I did. I'm convinced in saying this is pretty much going to be a cakewalk. Because I'm pretty certain in saying this is going to be no problem for me. I think we're pretty much going to sweep this one. Which to me is a good thing, because it means that the race that will follow is going to be a bit harder. And I say that well because next up we have the Supercar Festival, which is probably not going to be too easy for me. Yeah, I'm convinced in saying no tuning was needed on this car whatsoever. Because of just how far ahead I already am. So, I think that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about just how easy this is going to be. From what I can see. I probably should have chosen the Ginetta for this, considering how easy it was going to be. Because I am strongly convinced in saying this is going to be a cakewalk, as I'm already 6.3 seconds clear of the Toyota Yaris, I think, who's at the front. So, yeah. That tells me this is about as easy as it gets. I probably should have put on the hard tyres to make this more challenging, but I'm convinced in saying we don't need that. I'll probably just put on some additional weight so I'm not wasting too much money. Oh, never mind. The Honda Jazz is still in the lead of the rest of the pack, which I think is also known as the Honda Fit in America, if I'm not mistaken. And well, because we are in Seattle, I figured I might as well mention that. But anyway, I'm very much taking this one out to the ballpark. And I say that because I'm convinced in saying that is the Mariners Stadium I see there. Also yes, if you're asking, that was very much pun intended. Well, looks like I'm gonna have to put some extra weight in the car just to make this more of a challenge. Even though it probably won't matter because, well, I'll still pretty much be running circles around the rest of my competition. That's what I think is going to happen. So I think that pretty much rules out any need for qualifying. In all honesty, I kind of needed this level of well, I guess you could say this level of easiness. Because, well, we did pretty much go through a thrilling championship last time around when I drove the Mercury Cougar. Yeah, I think it's fair to say this race was probably too easy, from what I could see. And I am strongly convinced in saying that there's definitely a few things we need to do here. In order to get this done. And so, there we go. Race 1, too easy. That's all I can say about race 1. Over the Honda Jazz, the Volkswagen Lupo, a car which I have driven before, the Toyota Yaris, the Mercedes A160, and the BMW 120i. Yeah, this race was a little too easy, from what I could see. But anyway, $7.5 for winning. And now we get to move on to race number 2, which will be at Tsukuba. And before we get on with this, I'm going to put some more weight in the car because, well, winning the first race, it was a little too easy. And I figured because of that, yeah, we're gonna put some more weight in the car. Because of just how much I dominated last time. I want to make this more challenging. So I'm not just completely obliterating the field every time. I do this for entertainment purposes as well, if you're asking. So let's go. On to race 2. And only increased by a point. I'll probably have to go maximum weight. But I think it's fair to say with both the port polish and the engine balancing, I probably didn't need to do any of that. But I don't think it really matters because, well, I still very much came away with what was basically a dominant win nonetheless. Although, I kind of knew this one was going to be easy. Compared, of course, to the last one. Because, well, you know, I obviously don't want to make these races look too easy. But it definitely feels like this one was. But it definitely felt like the win in Seattle was a little bit too easy. So I put some extra weight in the car just to at least try to make the racing more interesting, but whether or not that does turn out to be the case is only something that, well, these next 3 races will be able to answer. And yes, I am holding back in comparison to the Toyota Yaris, or Toyota Vitz if you live in the States. In Europe we call it the Yaris. Unfortunately, however, it is not the pink Yaris, as some of you might come to know from the memes. I figured I would more or less bide my time with passing the Yaris on that occasion, because, well, I figured, well, it was going to be an easy pass either way. It's not like I really had anything to lose, especially since the gap is now just under a second, and I can guarantee it will be well over a second by the time we get to Sector 1, because I am very much driving what's essentially a dominant race car around here. Because, well, that's just the way things are sometimes. And I'm not really pushing hard either because, well, I don't really see the need to. I'm already 3.8 seconds up on the rest of the field as it is, so basically I'm just more or less riding easy. This practically is going to be a laid-back championship, whichever way you see it, is what me thinks. Just basically going smoothly with the car and basically just, you know, well, doing everything else that I normally do. And just making sure that, well, I pulled this off the right way. Because I can. So 6 seconds is now the gap to the Toyota Yaris. I think it's obvious to say at this point that I'm basically just laying back, because there's probably no reason for me to really push hard as we now head on to the final lap here at Tsukuba, and the gap is now 7.5 seconds, so it's probably going to be at least 10 or 11 seconds by the time we get to the end of this, is what me thinks. 8.2 seconds, so yeah, this is going to be pretty easy for me. Basically, just so easy that there's practically no real reason to push. Yeah, I think the gap is going to be at least 11 seconds by the time we're done. Possibly even 12 seconds. Again, as I said before, I can pretty much afford to lay back. And in the process, I set a new best lap time. So if anyone's going to get to the finish, it's probably going to be the Toyota. Yep, just as I thought, 12 seconds. And the Honda Jazz in the end overtook the VW Lupo. Well, at least I can say with the rest of the field there's some competition. As the Toyota Yaris, who finished 4th in the previous race, finishes 2nd here at Tsukuba, which now officially puts him in the fight. I kind of figured this was going to be pretty easy. But as to how easy, well, anyway. Those are your points now after 2 races, as I am double the points tally of the Honda Jazz at this stage. And I think it's gonna stay doubled as well. So, we have no need to qualify because, well, we're basically the clear-cut best of all the cars in the field, so I'm going to go maximum weight because I figure that's at least one way to make this feel more interesting. I probably could have put on the road tyres as well if I really wanted to, but oh well. Ish fine. Anyway, let's go with 4 laps of Grand Valley East. Probably doesn't help to say that these races are longer as well, and it's a rolling start. Although then again, we are riding around the reverse course, so you kind of would expect it to be, fucking a rolling start, instead of it being a grid formation. Even though the normal course technically does have grid formations. And that's a wall. Well, at least I can say putting extra weight in the car does make this feel like it's more interesting. And little contact there with the Jazz, but that's okay because I do manage to slot ahead of the Honda. And the Yaris is 2 seconds ahead. I know that's quickly gonna deteriorate as we go further and further on. I did put maximum weight in the car just to try and make this feel more compelling. But as to how much more compelling, well, we'll just have to wait and see. But either way, here goes nothing. Getting a little bump from behind there by the Toyota, but able to keep the car on the road at least, and also maintain my track position. And now, this is where we pretty much go on to basically just, well, never look back. This is basically the part now where we fuck off and not say a word to the rest of the field. Yeah, I'm strongly convinced in saying the engine tuning was completely unneeded. But I still did this anyway because, well, I figured why not. It would have honestly been more compelling if there was the Renault Clio V6 in this one, but unfortunately, well, the Clio is not here, so that's partly the reason why this is just so easy for me at this stage. I did put in a little extra weight just to make the race itself look more interesting, but in all honesty, even with me basically doing anything else to the car that's not power reduction related, this race, to put it simply, is not even close. We're basically just, well, fucking off into the distance. because that's just how much faster my car is compared to the rest of the field. And it's because of that I don't really see any need to push it. Because, well, I'm pretty much just tiptoeing my way around here. And just, well, driving this car smoothly. I probably could have put on the sports hard tyres if I really wanted to, but I don't think there really would have been any point in that, personally. Well, at least I can say the weight is at least keeping the Toyota in the competition here, so I think it's fair to say that we're very much in a class of our own here. So 9.8 seconds is now the gap to the Toyota, and I think since Seattle I've not completely blown out the field to the point of where they are not going to reach me before the fade. So I'm convinced in saying we'll be fine. And so, there we go. Race 3 is finito. And a new best lap time by 1.2 seconds. Even though I was basically just laid back for the entirety. So, 12.2 seconds in the end. And the Honda Jazz also finished. So I think that now means the Toyota Yaris takes over second in the standings, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway. Yeah, he does. So the Yaris is now on 15 points, with the Honda Jazz on 14 points. Then we got the Lupo in third, the A160 fifth, and the BMW in sixth and last. You know, the one thing that's ironic about this championship is that we... Let me think. So another 7.5 grand for winning. Yeah, I was right. The one thing that's ironic about this championship is that it's basically a case of Japanese cars and German cars. Whereas before we basically had, well, more or less a field for all the family, because, well, last time around we... You know what, yeah, I will save the replay, because I can. So I think this is now... Yeah, this is episode 45. So, yeah. Okay. That's good. I will have to make sure I get the dates corrected on whatever the hell that is. Anyway, another replay is saved. I know it's saved because it's at the bottom, but anyway, let's now move on to race 4, where I am now double the point advantage of the Toyota Yaris. So here we are now at Hong Kong Reverse, and where I have a 15-point gap over the Toyota Yaris. The Honda Jazz is third, followed by the VW Lupo, the Mercedes A160, and last but not least, the BMW 120. So, let's go for 4 laps around Hong Kong Reverse. It's also ironic to say that this is basically a case of Japan versus Germany under these regards. Whereas before, and I don't think I said this, but Whereas before, we basically had, well, pretty much fun for all the family. Because we basically had 3 Nissans, which are all Japanese. We also had 1 Alfa Romeo, 1 Mercury, which is, well, more or less a Ford, and, well, an AC Cobra. So we basically had fun for all the family, especially since we basically had cars from Japan, Italy, America, and ironically Britain. So in other words, it really was a world championship with the diversity that we had among our opponents. That's also including me, of course. Although I can definitely say the points themselves, the 1 point that I got from each of those races, yeah, judging by the competition I was up against, it was definitely worth more than 1 point. I would have honestly said, against the AC Cobra, it was worth at least 40 if not 50 points. Possibly even 60, because of how much of a run he gave me at, I think it was the Nürburgring, where he gave me his best run. Of course, as you might have guessed, well, it was swept after that, so yeah. So, at the front of the field, as I would have expected, and now it's pretty much onto the rest of the race from here, where I pretty much just crush any chances my competition has of beating me, because I am using a concept car from the 70s, which also happens to be a smooth handling car. Because I'm just that much faster than everyone else. But whatever. Point is, I'm here now. I am 5.35 seconds clear of the Yaris at this point, who did take over second place in the standings last time around from the Honda Jazz, who finished second in the first race but has now since been relegated to third for the last 2 races. Don't know what that was all about. I definitely heard something, but anyway. Yeah, could just be a mirage. Anyway, I am here now, and after 2 laps, it looks like we are continuing to pull away from both the Jazz and the Yaris. Nine seconds is now the gap. And it looks as though it's going to be at least 13 seconds by the time we get to the end of this race. Because that's just how far up we are. But anyway, the domination continues, as I am now 11 seconds clear of the Toyota. So the gap is probably going to be more than 15 seconds by the time we get to the end of this. Because I have just been so dominant throughout this event. And so, we'll see how we do. Yeah, I have no doubt in saying no one is going to make it to the line before the finish. Maybe when the points are being shown, but not before then, of course. Because, well, as you can see, I am very much dominating the field here. And that's in spite of me putting on basically as much weight as possible to actually make this more interesting. And unless I have a spin at this point, I highly doubt the rest of the field is going to make it, from what I can see. And that's a wall. Oh, I've gone too deep. Okay. I did manage to save it from secondary contact. And so, there we go. I think that's now... yeah, that's 4 of 5 wins altogether. In other words, 4 out of 4 at this point. So, I think it's fair to say the Toyota has definitely taken over second spot in the standings now over the Honda Jazz. So, it's pretty clear to say that we have absolutely dominated this championship. And there it is. 4 wins out of 4, and a 19-point advantage over the Toyota. So another 7.5 grand is ours, and that moves us up by 30 grand. And now we just have 1 race to go. At Twin Ring Motegi. Well, let's get this over with. Don't need to qualify because I'll probably just destroy my competition before it even gets started. I kind of figured this was going to be easy peasy with the Dome Zero, but all in all, basically no tuning was required, even though I still did it anyway just to be safe. But either way, I do have to at least keep it interesting, and that's what I try and do. So, already gained 1 spot, and it looks as though this race is going to be about as easy as all the other ones. Except for saying that I won't be dominating quite as much as I did in Seattle. So, you know, there is that. And I hit the back of the A160. But as ever, we'll wait and see what happens. As I now clear both the Honda Jazz and the VW Lupo. And now all that's left is the Toyota Yaris, who is up at the front and is probably going to be overtaken in just a matter of feet, is what me thinks. And on the brakes so I don't run into the back of him. I want to at least try and keep this clean. And looks as though up to this point, like, we are going to pass him. So at the start of lap 2, we passed the Toyota Yaris for P1. And it looks as though we are now going to stay here. As we're basically just going to do what we have done. Take the lead and then just never look back. And just never say a word to anyone who's behind us. So, yeah. So, we are continuing to boost ourselves further up. As I am now 6 seconds clear, so at this point, yeah, we've pretty much got this one in the bag. I'm convinced in saying this one is going to be an easy clean sweep, from what I can tell. There's just not really anything else to describe how dominant we've been at this point. We're very much just running away with this one. That's the only real description I can give. Plus, furthermore, the Toyota Yaris is pretty much running away with second place. So, yeah. Compared to the World Classic Car Series, this has just been domination from top to bottom for me. Compared to what I had before with my all-time classic battle emerging with the AC Cobra. Alright. Final lap of the World Compact Car Race. And also final lap of absolutely farcical domination. Yeah, there's no way anyone is making it to the line before the fade. It's just not happening, Chief. Even with as much weight as I've put in the car. Basically maximum weight, I might add. I did put on maximum ballast before heading into this race, but it's pretty obvious to say that by using the Dome Zero, well, domination was very much what I thought was going to happen here. So, 21 seconds up on the Toyota Yaris. No question in saying over just how good my Dome Zero has been from the beginning. And through the final hairpin we go. And the gap is now 21 seconds. So, as I said before, clear-cut domination. Had to mute the microphone there because someone came into my room for whatever reason. But anyway, that was the World Compact Car Race, and my god, was this very much... And my god, was this one very much a spanking for the rest of the field. But anyway, those are your point standings. No real change with the bottom two, but everyone else, well, they were not single file for the entire duration, so that's something of note. Anyway, 30 grand for winning, as we're now up to 281,300 credits. So, a clean sweep to me with 50 points, 27 points to the Toyota Yaris, 22 points to the Honda Jazz after he finished second in the championship opener in Seattle. Then we had the Lupo in fourth, the Mercedes A160 Avantgarde fifth, and in last, with 5 points, was the BMW 120i. So 50 points to me and my Dome Zero, 27 points to the Toyota, 22 points to the Honda, 16 points to the VW Lupo, 10 points to the Mercedes A160, and 5 points to the BMW 120i. I did save a replay, I just remembered. At least I think I did. Did I save a replay? I don't remember if I did or didn't. I'll have to check to be sure. If I didn't, then I'll just have to do this again. Anyway, this is the car we get. The Honda S800 RSC race car from 1968. I think that gives me an idea of what precisely we may consider using for one of our future escapades. Anyway, clean sweep in the World Compact Car Race. And now we have just 2 professional events to go. The Supercar Festival and the Gran Turismo World Championship. And the Supercar Festival is going to be a tough one, in terms of me deciding what car to use for that event. So we've now unlocked Tsukuba Circuit. I'm going to assume that must be Tsukuba Wet, judging by the image I just saw. Anyway. Now, I was pretty sure I saved a replay because I saved one at Grand Valley. And we've gained another 1% flat of progress. And our win ratio as a result of our clean sweep is now back up to 88%. Although I'm pretty sure that is going to move down again before too long. Anyway, so we've now driven over 550 miles. And let's now go see the car we won. Here it is. The Honda S800 RSC race car from 1968. And if we sell this thing, we'll get 50 grand. However, I am clearly not selling this thing, because this thing actually looks really good for a 60s race car. This was also at a time before they started developing front and rear wings on race cars. Still, I like this thing. I think this Honda S800 is... it's really fucking good, if I do say so myself. Okay, anyway. So, the World Compact Car Race has now been beaten, and next time we'll be doing the Supercar Festival, coming in the next episode of GT4.